when Kenya was transitioning into multi-party politics, I then edited a magazine called The Advocate for the Law Society of Kenya. And I wrote an editorial, which editorial said in part that I hope that the participants will not see the electoral process as a cutthroat competition in which throats are actually cut. And those words have remained unfortunately true, that elections have led to the cutting of throats, not only in this country, but in almost every African country. The late Ghanaian, who was the Secretary General of the United Nations, whose quote epilogues my paper, said that elections should not be about who wins and about who loses, but whether the country or whether a country loses or wins. Many times when I look at Africa and I look at how this continent was so very cruelly divided in 1884, not for the benefit of Africans, but for the benefit of the colonial powers. And when I look at the process of decolonization, it is as if Africa was designed to fail. The post-colonial African nation was never designed to succeed. And that must be at the back of our minds, so that when we grapple with the problems that we have, we must contextualize them in history. How is it that our countries were so arbitrarily divided? How is it that our institutions were undermined, so that when we talk about the traditional kingdoms, they were undermined? They lost their value. How is it that foreign systems were imposed on us, so that when we use words such as democracy, I normally ask people to think in their mother tongue, think in Luganda, in Busoga, in Jopadola. What is the equivalent word for democracy? And if anybody discovers it, tell me. Because we have our own words of defining and describing governance. So I very reluctantly use the word democracy. I use the word governance, because governance we know. And when I talk about elections and their impact in Africa, I go back to 1963. In 1963, 32 African countries had regained their independence. The leaders gathered in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and each one of them spoke. For Uganda, the person who spoke was Apollo Milton Obote. He was then the prime minister. Of course, Kabaka Mutesa was the president at that time. He dispatched the Prime Minister Obote to be present. Each one of them recognized the need to rethink governance in Africa. Kwame Nkrumah naively thought that Africa would unite very quickly and that the problems would disappear. In 1965, he writes a book which he calls Neo-Colonialism, the last stage of imperialism, and he proceeds to say the most dangerous. Some say that it's because of that book that 1 year later he was then overthrown in a military coup d'etat. In other words, Africans had started getting dissatisfied with inherited systems. So soon after we regained our independence, the election that we are talking about in Congo in 1961, No sooner has Lumumba, for whom I am named, been elected than 9 months later, he is killed. 1961. And Congo has never been the same again. In Togo in 1963, Sylvanus Olympio is also assassinated. And it has never been the same again. In Nigeria, there is a coup d'etat in 1967, and it has never been the same again. In Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania in 1964, simultaneously there are mutinies. And of course in Uganda in 1971, there is a coup d'etat. And it's only after much problems in 1986 that the NRM government comes into existence. Pain in Luero. Pain in different parts. The administration then takes the view then that perhaps there is a problem with governance. And Uganda has what is called a no-party system. But Europe and America are quick to tell us that those are not democratic. And somehow we believe them. Somehow. So after the collapse of the Soviet Union, every other African country is told democracy means. Europe and America are telling us. If they are not telling us from Washington, they are telling us from London or from Brussels or from Paris or from whichever capital. They are telling us, you must have multi-parties. You must have civil society. You must do as we say. And Uganda does as they say, like other countries. You reintroduce multi-parties. You have a constitution in 1995 which is founded on yet another Eurocentric model. Liberal democracy. Liberal democracy. In the intervening period, and this is significant, in the intervening period, Europe does not do away with their monarchies. They don't. They have monarchy in the United Kingdom. They have monarchy in Sweden. They have monarchy in Denmark. They have monarchy in Spain. They have monarchies everywhere, except, of course, Portugal and Italy and France and Germany for reasons that we know. But they tell us no. And we believe them. So whenever you look at this, the lamentation is necessary, but we have come of age. We can no longer afford the luxury of driving this vehicle with the help of a rear mirror. Going forward, what do we do? And that is how I understand the question of building trust. Do you know that many African countries don't even print their ballots? We must start with that. If we don't print our ballot papers in Germany, we are printing them in Greece. If we are not printing them in Greece, we are printing them in London. If we are not printing them in London, we are printing them in Paris. We don't even trust ourselves to print a paper, which when we throw in the ballot and it's counted, it is useless. It has more security features than our currency in Africa, because we don't trust each other. So I'm suggesting to this assembly here that the time is now, because elections in Africa are life-threatening. And the question is, why are they life-threatening? Permit me, Madam Chair, before I get into the crux of my matter, to just walk you around Africa now to see what is happening. In South Africa, some South Africans are working in hospitals and expelling their fellow Africans, saying they should go back home. In Zimbabwe, there is a group called Mutuakazi who want to change and to create their own country. In Zambia, the former president is dead. They are worrying and quarreling in South Africa as whether he should be buried at home or not. In Malawi, They are going through an electoral process, and it is the same. In Tanzania, it is the same. Just this morning, I've read a letter written by the opposition leader who is in prison, lamenting about the charge that he faces, the charge of treason. In Kenya, our elections are 2 years away, and you'd think they are tomorrow. And only 2 days ago, people are already rising against each other from an ethnic perspective. In Uganda, it is the same. You are buying votes using motorcycles and rice and t-shirts. In Sudan, they have degenerated. They are killing each other, and the opposition leader declared himself a president. There are now 2 presidents in that country. In South Sudan, the same. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the former president is being tried in absentia and is facing treason charges in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In Central African Republic, there is a leader who has extended his term, and but for the Russian military would be out of power. In Libya, there are 2 governments. In the Sahel, in Niger, in Mali, and Burkina, there are military governments. In La Côte d'Ivoire, the president has extended his term. That is the state of our continent. And every time we face elections, there are threats. It's Chinua Achebe who said, when you see a toad jumping into the daylight, something is after its life. Something is after your life. That's why you are congregated here. You fear that if we continue on this trajectory, people will rise against each other because they belong to different tribes, because they belong to different religions. You fear that women will be molested because of elections. You fear that politicians will throw each other into jail and some will be killed because people are seeking office. That is why we are assembled here. And we are assembled here to wonder what it is that we can do to immunize ourselves from the pain that election visits upon us every other circle. That's why we are gathered here. We are here as people who mean well for Uganda. During breakfast, I was telling my hosts that those who are religiously inclined, and this is a story that is also known to Islam, the story of Elijah, whom I'll refer to as Elijah or Elijah. Elijah governed or was a prophet during the times of a person called Ahab, who had 450 prophets of a god called Baal. And his wife would not want to be left behind. She also had 400 prophets of Asherah. But there was a prophet of the Almighty God called Elijah, who in modern times, if he was diagnosed, they would say he had mental health issues. He was suffering depression. So he wonders what it is to be done. Real. What does he do? He hears voices. He goes into the cave. And he challenges the prophets of Baal to a duel at Mount Carmel. You slaughter your bull, I slaughter my bull, and we call upon our God, and we see which God is going to succeed. The story is well known to all of you. He tells God, his God, that everybody has knelt before Baal except him. God tells him, no, you do not know. There are 6,000 others. You are here and I are in the same position like Elijah. Those who intend to do good never collaborate. But the evildoers know how to network. You ask those who are in the drug business how they network. From Mexico to Colombia to Venezuela, to Guinea-Bissau, to Uganda, they know how to transport cocaine. But do we know how to transport and export good manners and virtues and values? No. We judge, we say, I'm good, I'm born again, therefore I'm going to heaven alone. So that good manners are not infectious. I'm urging you today to make good manners and good values infectious. If there is a disease, if you allow me, which should be a pandemic, it should be the disease of good manners. And I'm using the word disease deliberately. We must infect ourselves with good manners. And good manners starts with how we choose leaders. On what basis are you going to vote when the voting comes? Is it one from your tribe? Is it one from your village? Is it one from your religious group? Is it one who has bribed you? Ask those fundamental questions. Here in Uganda, those of you of the Christian extraction will remember there was a time when even the Church of Christ was confused, and there was something that is called, I think it was called restoration or something. And the song that you heard was Tukute Tenderes. Yeah. Someone again. Yes, someone I'm locals. The revival. We need a revival so that we can have a political tukutenderes. Political tukutenderesa is what is going to liberate Uganda. East African revival. So until the day that we have our own political tukutenderesa, we are going nowhere. And that tukutenderesa spirit must be fed to every politician. Because all African politicians, almost without exceptions, have scales on their eyes and wax in their ears. We must do something to melt the wax and to make the scales to fall down and to tell them that leadership is a position of trust. You know, if you read history, there was a Russian leader called Joseph Stalin. It was said of him that he was larger than life, almost as large as death. We must tell politicians that they are not larger than life and not larger than life, and that there is the coming and going, and theirs is to do their